Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Destina. This is Spiritually Bougie Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of October 9th to October 15th. Yes, I looked at the dates again. Ask me the transits. I'll tell you the transits all week, but I'm always going to screw up the numbers. That's weird. I know. I'm weird. I don't deny it. I tell everybody that. We're about to turn something around. We're about to make a change. We're about to make an adjustment. We're about to adjust somebody's attitude. Some of us, the attitude adjustment came through this weekend before going into the week. There were a lot of transits to this last week, and a lot of things were about pushing some things in place, creating openings and opportunities. But we're not quite done with that at the time that I'm recording. So I'm actually recording this Saturday morning, and one of the two major weekend transits, it's starting its hyperized energy right now, but it doesn't perfect it, of course, until Sunday evening. The other thing that's going on right now is Venus is starting her going over a point of shadow. And the next thing that's going to occur again also Sunday night is Venus is going into Virgo. And we got a lot of change in the atmosphere, a lot of change in the energy. But for us to accept a lot of this change, an action or an event has to take place. For some people, that action, that event, that situation happens over the weekend. For some people, it's going to happen on Monday. The real world effect is a lot of things are going to happen on Monday. Especially if some of these transits are in like your work or your money houses. You might not know what you're going to be dealing with until you get back to work on Monday. That's the human effect. I know I'm getting more and more people listening to me, so I kind of like to explain this now so more people can kind of get an awareness. When I do my charts, I tell you the exact times of the transits, and that's when it's the most hyper-focused. However, the human effect is, it doesn't always happen then. Sometimes it happens a week or two later. Sometimes. That's going to be more tied with eclipses because we do start eclipse season this week. For some people, it's a few hours. For some people, it's a day. For some people, it's all internal. For some people, it's external. For some people, it's both. It's seeing something external in the life and having an internal thing going, I don't ever want to be in that situation. Sometimes life is like watching a Jerry Springer episode. Rest in peace, Jerry. Like, wow, that's a hot mess. I don't ever want to be on that stage. That type of thing. Yeah. Again, two transits from the weekend set the stage for Monday. The first one is the Mars-Pluto square. It is the one that takes us into a big portion of the next parts of the activity. However, that activity is going to be very much set with a lot of things tied to Venus also. So I want to be super clear. There's a couple different things that I was picking up as to like what occurs over the weekend that's going to launch us into Monday. I put some of these into last week's forecast, but the thing is like it all happened very, very late Sunday night. So it's carrying us into this week. The energy of this week that we're going into, the stage was set this weekend. Mars and Pluto are both the rulers of Scorpio. Mars is the god of war. Pluto is the atomic bomb. Whatever Pluto does, it's meant to transform, whether that's good or bad or ugly, whether that hurts you or not, Pluto doesn't care. He doesn't care. Mars wants to take action. Immediately following the Mars-Pluto square perfecting, Pluto's going to turn direct. For many people, a challenge has been accepted. Whether it was over the weekend, whether it was something you were thinking about for a while and it was just lingering, you just, I don't know, a challenge is going to get accepted. A challenge to turn something around. For some people, it's not necessarily about a challenge. It's about an internal turn. Something deep within. Pluto is the ruler of the underground. Things below the surface. When I did the month ahead forecast, I talked about one particular song tied to this week. And whenever I woke up this morning and I was meditating on the transits, it was a song that I heard again. And that was The Verve, Bittersweet Symphony. The Verve is the name of the band. Most people know the name of the song, Bittersweet Symphony. And the first time I was writing my notes out for like the month ahead forecast, I just kept hearing the violin. I'm not going to do that because I watched YouTube like hit me with something. So I was hearing the violins. I kept hearing the lyrics today, like, I can change, but I can't change my mold. You can't always change the physical things that have created the person that you are. However, the decision to do internal changes are very, very important. Certain conversations need to be had at the beginning of this week. Decisions that have been made. And those conversations, those decisions are going to be a part of the challenge to turn something around with Pluto. We want to correct something in our image, correct something from the past. We want to heal a wound. I can change, but I can't change the mold. I'm always going to have the scars. I'm always going to look like my dad. Especially if you're having issues with like a parent, like, you look just like your father. Okay. There's some things we can't change, but there are others that we can. Last week, Mars hit a conjunction to the South Node, and I tweeted about this, and I did an entire meditative rant episode about Mars and the South Node, and that it had a Uranian energy of suddenness that it's going to follow. But the internal energy, that sudden internal, when Mars hit the South Node last week, there was a sudden internal adjustment, an internal shake. And I tweeted about this and I said, if you are feeling good today, you are in alignment. What's going to happen next as we go into this next few weeks is going to be a level up energy for the alignment you've been feeling. If during the Mars South Node conjunction, you were feeling triggered, there's something that needs to be healed. Sometimes that trigger is like you're trying to do your work because you're doing your job that you've had for umpteen years and you're suddenly can't, you literally cannot type on the keyboard. I've done this before. Energy. You felt internally like you couldn't keep doing this work. That was a trigger of something that needs to change. For some people, you suddenly had floods of old memories come through. This was a flood of energy telling you of something you needed to heal. You were supposed to be triggered last week. For the majority of us. For some of us, we suddenly felt a yearning. It wasn't a trigger in a bad way, it was a yearning. I want this. I want this situation. I want this person. I want this relationship. I want this job. I want this. And Mars' South Node conjunction led to an internal realization to take an action. And again, for some people, the action happened over the weekend. For some, it's going to happen this week because to take that action, other things have to fall away, have to be completed. A barrier, whether it's an energetic barrier or a physical barrier of some sort, needs to be removed. If you were triggered when the Mars South Node conjunction happened, understand we got 2 more South Node conjunctions that are going to happen this month, and each one will trigger you more. It doesn't just go away. You can't just ignore those triggers. They happen for a reason. And if you continue to try to ignore them, they start to get worse later on. They do. There's a manifesting energy that can take place this week, especially if we were in the alignment energy. If you were triggered to purge, to release, to let something go, to recognize that you've outgrown something or someone, the action that needs to follow is to take back personal power. And Mars' square to Pluto is meant to show us that. The other energy that happens on Sunday that leads us into Monday, at 8:11 p.m. Central Standard Time, Venus enters Virgo. For the first half of Libra season, the Sun and Venus have been in mutual reception. Venus being in the Sun's sign, I want to have all of these things. I want to be seen this way. I want to just show the world that I'm amazing. Ma'am, didn't you just throw a chair at somebody? Shut up! Because we all know Venus has showed her ass. I will continue to call this last Venus retrograde a show your ass retrograde, because I did not feel this way about that Venus retrograde in Capricorn. Boy howdy, this Venus retrograde, this was a show your ass timeline. Venus going into Virgo changes the way the rest of Libra season is going to go. And it changes how we deal with the first half of eclipse season. We're actually reactivating an energy, but we're reactivating an energy, but we've progressed from that energy. And it's specifically energy from the last eclipse season. In April and May, while we were going through that last eclipse season, Venus and Mercury were in mutual reception. The difference was Venus was ahead of Mercury. Venus was in Gemini. Mercury did an entire retrograde in Taurus, and it was meant to show us the underbelly of certain people back then. See that somebody's changed. See that somebody's doing things differently. Just see it. Some people did, and they've already made according changes to that. Others didn't, because they like to be stuck in their rut. I don't like change. Let me be very clear about people that say, I don't like change. The definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over and over again, expecting a different result. If you want to make food and biscuits or bread or something like that, your favorite chili recipe, I get it. You don't want to mess with perfection. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about the repeated patterns towards trauma, the repeated patterns of heartbreak. If you are always doing the exact same thing with somebody over and over and over again, and they always treat you like shit, you're making an active choice to stay in insanity, to live in insanity. If you are always telling everybody, well, I'm too broken, I don't deserve love, I'm just gonna be a sourpuss, because that's what I'm fucking calling you. Sourpuss. I'm always gonna be this way. No, you're not. You're making the active choice to stay wounded, to live in trauma. You're choosing to be miserable. We've all either been in situations like this where we just chose to stay in that shitty relationship and that shitty marriage, and oh my God, I don't know when he's ever going to act right again. He's not. I'm divorced for a reason, happily divorced. He's not. You can't expect to do the same thing over and over and over again and get a different result. Some of you, that was the trigger this last week. They're not understanding. You're right. And what we need to do now is take back personal power. There's a turnaround in regards to power, abuses of power, and power struggles this week. There is a turnaround in regards to responsibilities that start this week. Who's going to be in charge? Where the boss is going to be, who the boss actually is. There are turns that start this week in more ways than one. And I'll rant about the rest of it at the end. All right, let's take a look at Monday. We're starting Monday morning right after midnight because, again, we're riding energy from Sunday into Monday. So right before midnight, the moon in Leo made a square to Jupiter. This was perfecting right as Venus changed signs. Now, the moon is in its sextile with the sun. For many, many people, energy's tied to when the moon was in Cancer, so that would have been Saturday up until like 6 p.m., all day Friday, and basically all day Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We were meant to be in our emotions last week on those few days, showing us again something that needed to heal and something that needed to purge. We needed to deal with some emotions those days. Some people got warnings during that time that something was about to happen. Some people had like intentions that were spoken about the past. Going, they're out. I know you said you don't want to talk to them anymore, but I really think that they would do better if you were around, if you could help. No, I don't want to. There's something about parts of the energy going into Monday, like if we just told somebody, no, we're not going to do it, we get that other call saying, hey, something happened. An act, an activity, an event, a frustration, a fight. I've got this on October 9th at 1:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. The moon is entering its sextile with the sun. Mars is just barely past its square with Pluto. This energy carries us through Monday and Tuesday. It also does Wednesday, but for a different reason. There is a challenge with Mars. Mars has been full steam ahead for quite some time. I want to do something. I want to take something forward. I want to change something. I want to get something done. Mars' square to Pluto is one chart ruler for Scorpio risings versus another. So for me, my chart rulers, they're in a square. Yeah. Motivation. A kick in the ass. Finding the gear. Finding the gas. For some people, those last little minutes of Venus and Leo, the gas led to altercations. The gas led to reactions. It led to triggers. It led to more fear. It led to something. And now that Venus is in Virgo, our awareness of somebody else's shit and somebody else's ego and somebody else's trauma and somebody else's problems, it's different. And in some way, shape, or form, we're going to be dealing with some form of government, judicial, authorities, lawyers, responsibilities. We're dealing with something in the first few days of the week. Dealing with something with our elders, dealing with something with medical professionals. We're dealing with something in the first few days of this week. The moon's sextile to the sun goes the most exact between 1:30 and 3:30 in the morning. So you can see that right here. Not everybody's going to be dealing with something in that first part of the morning, but this can lead to like waking up with an idea, waking up, hearing that an intention or an action is necessary, that something has changed. Somebody left. The moon is in Leo, but Venus just left Leo. Something went wrong. Something happened. An activity, an event, something a long time in the making. The next part of an activation is occurring Monday, and that's the sun going over Mars's rebirth. From 2 years ago. Now, Venus's opposition to Saturn is going to be building all day. There's a maturity, there's a responsibility, there's authority, there's something that needs to get approved, there's interactions with a boss, there's interactions with the elders, there's something going on, there's a level up in the energy. Now, Venus is opposition to Saturn. It's building, but it's not exact on Monday. It actually goes exact in the overnight hours going into Tuesday, so I'm not going to get too heavy on this just yet, but understand that there is an action and an activity to do something, face something, face someone, handle a responsibility, put something in order. Some of us were getting brought in to talk to the boss because we screwed up. You want to tell me what that was this weekend? I saw the tape. No, you saw the tape. No, I don't want to tell you what that was. I don't want to tell you what happened. I don't want to deal with your bullshit right now. Mars is square to Pluto. Think of it this way. Pluto is in Saturn sign. Mars is getting hosted by Venus. Whatever occurred this weekend can directly lead to having to deal with authority figures. I'm trying to be lighthearted about it, but that's not a joke. Could directly lead to the need to deal with authority figures, can directly lead to something with an elder, can directly lead to something. And for many of us, we're in the aftermath on Monday. Now, between 3:30 and 4:30, we also get this moon square with Uranus. If something happened over the weekend, and we go to tell our friend, we go to tell somebody else, we go to talk about it, and they're not expecting it, Uranus square the moon, we get unexpected news. It's like, oh my God, really? That's what happened? Yeah, that's what happened. That's how things went down. For some people, this is, again, calling somebody to come bail us out. We're getting somebody else's perspective. There's a shock value to it. There's an unexpectedness for some of us. The Saturn's energy is going to be something, again, can be going on with grandpa or auntie or uncle. Just so you know, we had to go to the doctor. I thought we didn't have any appointments this week. No, something happened. We had to go to the doctor. We had to go to the ER. We had to go to the emergency room. Or I called them first thing this morning. They squeezed us in right then. There's something that needs to be addressed, something that is going to be looked at regarding an elder or an authority figure Monday. Additional labs, additional testing. Some of us are going to be interviewing all the lawyers in town to make sure that our husband doesn't get one that's going to take us to the bank. Sometimes it's the husband doing that to the wife. There is something about responsibility that is very much in the atmosphere. Who's going to be responsible for what? For some people, Mars' square to Pluto is going to be something that happens on Monday. And it's going to be that challenge. It's going to be that effect. It's going to be something with, again, the boss. What happened this weekend? What happened? I saw that tape. Well, I don't need to tell you what happened because you saw the tape. I meant that. Some of us were waking up feeling renewed, feeling hopeful, feeling excited, feeling motivated. Our alignment energy is there. Not everybody is in alignment, but there's some people that are in alignment, and it's just like we're ready to hit the ground running come Monday. And that's going to be a lot of the energy for some people throughout the entire week. Now, in the overnight hours into Tuesday, so right now I've got this at 10. I was looking at the 10 of October, ironically enough. October 10th. Just after midnight, so I have the 12:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Here's Venus and her opposition to Saturn. It goes the most exact at 1:10 a.m., so we're right there. Simultaneously, the moon is going to sextile Mars. Now, you guys have heard me talk about sometimes we have hidden transits. there are layers to Tuesday. Because just as much as we have active physical transits that are easy to see, like Venus's opposition to Saturn, like right here, we also have those hidden transits. Mars, while it's leaving its square to Pluto, is going to go into hidden transits with both Saturn and Venus over the course of Tuesday, sorry. In a lot of ways, this is like an outside thing that's confirming something we're already seeing, that's confirming something we can already talk about. It's confirming something. For some people, it's confirming that we don't need to work for Saturn anymore. For other people, it's confirming for Saturn that Venus has been doing some stupid shit recently. Mars is going to be in an antitia to Saturn. That is a secret opposition. We know somebody just lied to us. We know they've been sneaking around. We know they've been interviewing with other jobs. We know. Now, Mars's antitia to Saturn goes the most exact at 11 a.m. I know I'm not there right now. Before that, though, Mars is going to go through a contra antitia to Venus. And that's happening at 5:20 in the morning. So this is all talking about early morning stuff. That contra antitia is a hidden handshake. It's a hidden agreement. It's a hidden alignment. It's like having the right person in your corner warning you, hey, the energy is going to be shit on Tuesday. Not everybody knows that the energy is going to be shit on Tuesday. It doesn't necessarily have to be shit. But you get a warning. They don't know that your coworker just let you know, hey, the boss is mad and he's looking for you. Oh, crap. Don't worry, I got your back. Oh. You didn't even realize that you needed somebody to have your back. But all of a sudden, somebody's like, don't worry, I got your back. Oh. Okay. An unexpected alliance. An unexpected part of support. In some ways, Saturn might figure it out. In others, maybe not. Venus's opposition to Saturn goes the most exact at 1:10 a.m. As the overnight hours progress, the moon will leave its sextile with Mars, and it will go into Virgo. And it will immediately start in opposition to Saturn and come into a conjunction with Venus. So this is like bringing in the third party, bringing in another person. Some people are going to feel like two people are teaming up on them. Like, hey, we really want to talk to you about this really great business idea. I hate MLMs, go away. Just an example. Hey, I think I'm going to bring somebody else in to work these open houses for you. I need another person. We need a team. It needs to be a team effort. In some ways, the moon is coming to team up with Venus, going, hey, you got this wrong. I don't care what you saw on that screen. I don't care what you saw on that tape. You did not see everything. You did not see what happened 2 minutes before in the other part of the store when nobody was around. You didn't know. You didn't see. And there's like somebody coming to bat for Venus, somebody to team up with Venus, somebody to help. Again, I got your back. There's somebody that is meant to help, support, team up with. And that comes with the moon's conjunction to Venus. The majority of the energy tied to Tuesday is Saturn and Venus until we get into the evening. And that evening is whenever Pluto turns direct. So let's talk about what needs to turn around to allow for Pluto's energy to succeed now, to allow for us to understand the transitions in responsibility within our elders, in the authority figures. We need to understand something. Venus opposite Saturn, we're going to go sign an agreement. We're going to sign a contract. We're going to sign something. Venus is in Mercury's sign. tangible, written. We are coming to terms with the boss. We're coming to terms with an authority figure. We're accepting an offer. A job offer has been made. We're accepting it. The moon's conjunction to Venus is like, great, after you sign this, think e-sign things. After you sign it, as soon as it's in, it'll come right back to me. But it's not just coming back to, him. It's coming back to his assistant, his team, his title office, his other agent, his brokerage. Suddenly, more people got that email back after you signed and you didn't realize it. We had a signing. After that signing, we needed to give that stuff to the other people. So again, think that real estate transaction aspect. You got to get it to title. You got to get it to the lender. You got to get it to everybody else involved. Some people, you're signing your marriage certificate. You're signing your divorce decree. And what has to happen after you sign? Shit's got to get filed. The moon coming into that conjunction with Venus, it's the filing. Some people, you're meeting with the boss. It does not go well. You're super frustrated, and you don't realize that there's going to be another appointment later that day with somebody else that's going to be in your exact same shoes. You got in trouble. It didn't go well. Somebody comes to the meeting, goes and does their meeting. They got your back, and they're defending themselves, and they might be just a little bit better with you explaining what just happened. And all of a sudden, it changes that motivation. It changes that respect, and that changes that issue with this other person. Excuse me. For some people, it's like sitting down with an attorney or sitting down with your parole officer. It's sitting down with somebody and finally getting something handled, getting something squashed. And whenever the moon makes its conjunction to Venus later in the day, it's like telling your loved ones, I finally got this handled. We finally reached an agreement. We finally came to terms with something. It finally happened. That's great, babe. It's bringing in that extra person for that other level of support. They got nothing to do with Saturn. You're just telling them what happened. I'm finally off of probation. I finally got my job offer. I finally got that raise. I finally got it. That's so great. And this will be the initiative energy of a turn in what has been a struggle. Especially if you just got the raise or you've been hunting for a job forever and all of a sudden you get this job. Pluto turning direct is ending a power struggle. There's something in the Venus-Saturn opposition that ends a power struggle. For some people, it's not about a struggle at all. This retrograde was meant to show you the things that needed to be worked on a little bit deeper. You needed to heal connections. You needed to heal something tied to your faith. And there's something about sitting down with your parents, telling them your decisions, telling them where you're at in life, coming clean about something, coming out. That you're anticipating the worst. And whatever Saturn says confirms the worst or surprises you and ends the struggle. Even the confirmation is ending the struggle. Now you're not questioning, well, Dad, just so you know, sometimes Dad's perfectly acceptable with it. Other times it's like, well, are you sure? Are you sure that's what you want to do? Are you sure you want to marry this fella? Are you sure? You knew they were going to ask these questions. You knew that there would be additional things that come out. But now that it's happened, you no longer question, well, what's he going to say? No, he said it now. There's a turn in the energy of Tuesday. The moon's opposition to Saturn and its conjunction to Venus goes a little bit more direct around this 9:30, 10 something in the morning time frame. By the time we get to lunch on the central time zone, this is pretty well over. So whatever energy is to Tuesday morning, whatever is going on, This pretty well carries throughout the entire day. For many of us, there is an energy about the last 2 years coming to a high point. The last 2 years are coming to a peak. Over the last day and a half, the sun has been going over Mars's rebirth point. And as soon as the sun gets off of 16 degrees, because it's the 15 and 16 degree mark, Mars starts going over Venus's last rebirth point from October 22nd of 2022. There was something internally felt. There was an acceptance. There was something that came through last fall that's now coming to another culmination point. There are themes from last fall that will start to come to culmination points this week. Mars is now at the 29 degree mark of Libra. This has actually been a very hyperactive point. I said that back in July whenever we had the Sun-Pluto opposition squaring the nodes at 29 degrees. Anytime a planet is at 29 degrees and any transit, we become very, very aware of an ending or letting something go or a release or a purging. Venus just changed signs. We had to let something go. Something ended. But these first few days of Venus and Virgo, they lead to two turns. One, Pluto turning direct, and that happens later in the day on the 10th. So let's get this to 8:30. So 7:30. Pluto is right here at the top of the screens at 27 degrees and 53 minutes. If I bump this by 1 more hour, 8:30, that little retrograde symbol, Pluto is direct. By 8:30, Pluto's direct. I think it goes direct at exactly, did I write that one down? 8:10 p.m. A lot of things happening at like that 8 o'clock hour this week. Venus turned direct around there. Pluto's turning direct literally 48 hours after Venus changed signs. The things that have occurred over these last 48 hours directly impact the turnaround of Pluto. They directly impact the challenge between the Mars-Pluto square. We're turning something around. An action or activity has been turned. And now we're starting to reach culmination points from previous timelines. We're bringing a lot of things full circle. We're bringing a lot of things to the surface. Okay. We won't get the full effect of Pluto's energy and the turnaround until we get to the 11th. So there's something about whenever we just go to sleep, it's like the Control-Alt-Delete. It's the shaking of the Etch-a-Sketch. Clear! We get into the 11th. And the 11th is actually not a heavy transit day. The heavier days are Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday feels like a lingering effect. It feels like an after effect. In the early morning hours, the moon is going to go through a contra antitia to the sun. Now this actually happens right at 7:28, so I'm going to get this to 7:30 and it's going to be pretty close. Basically the moon, if I was to fold the chart here at the equinox line, the mathematical number between the moon and the sun equal 30. This is what creates the contra antitia. But a contra antitia is, again, secret, internal agreements, connections, conjunctions. We know things differently. A decision on how something needs to start moving forward is in the atmosphere. It's in the energy. Simultaneously, the moon is going to be going through a trine with Jupiter. Now, this goes the most exact between 9 and 11:30 a.m. So it's like the internal decision is made as we're drinking our morning coffee, as we're driving into work, because I'm just to pretend everybody has a normal 9-to-5 job for just a moment. Driving somewhere, we're driving into work. And then whenever we discuss something, we talk about something with another person, it's like there's a confirmation of support, of belief, how things can progress moving forward, how we can solidify something, how we can make this deal happen. kind of a handshake agreement. There's support between Jupiter and the moon. Grounded, tangible support. The moon is in Mercury's sign. Mercury is starting to go through its in conjunction. So it's quincunx to Jupiter. So again, we're reaching a settlement and agreement, but we're doing it indirectly. There's another party. We're having some findings. We're getting something confirmed through another party, through another entity. Hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Sure did. How'd you hear about it? The moon told me. Just a feeling, an inkling, an idea. Now, as we get into Wednesday morning, because I want to go backwards again. Please note, Saturn. Pluto is direct now in Saturn's sign. Within 24 hours of Pluto turning direct, Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, elders, authority figures, the boss, constitution, constructs, documentation, the authority aspect. For the rest of this month, Saturn is going to be at 0 degrees. Saturn is stationing. We're spinning. Authority figures are spinning. Responsibility is spinning. And considering everything else that's in the cardinal signs going through eclipse season, we're in the process of starting a transition in power. Pluto just turned direct. We're turning around a powerful issue. An issue tied to elders. An issue tied to authority figures. We're turning something around. The first part of this week was the decision to turn something around. Everything past this point is the process of the turnaround, of who's going to be in charge, who's going to be the boss now, who we're going to respect, who we're sharing our time with, how we're going to be seen in this world. But I'm saying this on an authoritative sense. How authorities will see us moving forward. Again, people are getting divorced. People are getting married. Name changes. How authorities will see us moving forward. Okay. Oh. For the most part of the day, whatever kind of sets the stage for the morning part, it's just like a gradual effort and a gradual fit of moving things into place. Decisions are getting made, and then immediate, responses and conversations to these new things. That's all in the energy. In many ways, we're going into uncharted territory. We're doing some things we've never done before. In the later parts of the evening, Mars is going to change signs. Now, this is, for once, not happening at 8 o'clock. It actually happens closer to 11:30. So today, here we are, October 11th, 11:30 p.m. It actually went exactly at 11:05, so we're close enough. Mars, 0 degrees. Mars has entered Scorpio. There is something about Mars in Scorpio that truly screams to me blank slate. We're starting something new. We're starting new chapters in our lives. We're putting something in motion. Mars is now in its own home sign for the first time in 2 years. Mars hasn't been in Scorpio since December of 2021. Pluto is newly direct, just after having had a square with Mars. There's a reason I said that the Mars-Pluto square felt like an accepted challenge. It took a few days after the acceptance to get some things in motion. Cross all the I's, dot all our T's, do all the paperwork, do all the filing. And now we get to the 11th. Long-term motivations. Now, the only thing with Mars is the entire time that the South Node was going through Scorpio, Mars did not go into Scorpio. So the other thing for Mars is like Mars is going into its home for the first time in 2 years. In some ways, it's a blank slate. It's all in the first few days, though, it's not going to feel like a blank slate. The first few days of Mars going into Scorpio, which this is the energy that's going to carry us from Wednesday into Thursday. The first few days of Mars in Scorpio is going to be like baby steps in. We got to see and take stock of everything everyone else has done. And that's not easy to do. Early on the 12th, the moon in Virgo is going to trine Uranus. We had an idea, we've got an inkling, try something out of the box, sudden communication. But after the moon trines Uranus, the moon is going to hit this opposition to Neptune. And in some ways, we're trying to ask for somebody else to say what they would do in our shoes. Well, how would you start? What would you do? Where do you think we should talk about these things first? Where do you think we should go? Who do you think we should try to hire first? What do you think we should buy first? What do you think we need to do first? The moon in the opposition to Neptune, while Mercury and Jupiter are in the most exact part of their in conjunct quincunx pattern, we're needing to get ideas of what somebody else might do before we can progress. How do you think I should handle it? I think you should ask questions. The moon is in Mercury's sign. Neptune is in its own sign, but it's in Jupiter's sign. Mercury and Jupiter are not seeing eye to eye. In some ways, we're going to hear somebody say something and we're going to realize it doesn't quite make sense. Well, why are you acting this way? Why would you even say that? Why would you even think that? Because it's necessary. Some people are going to struggle with the power dynamic that has just changed, and they're going to question the responsibility. They're going to question the authority. They're going to question things. Well, who thought you should be in charge? Go talk to the boss. We don't know what we don't know. What would I do if I was in your shoes? I would ask questions as to what went wrong before. Oh, that's a good idea. Find out what wasn't working so that way we don't repeat that pattern. If somebody's been there long enough, maybe you should ask questions as to like, what did work back in the day? And maybe we should get into that a little bit more. What worked? What didn't work? There can be some confusion, some shakiness. How do we move forward from here? Where do we start? You start by asking questions. You start by investigating a little bit. A little bit. The moon in this opposition to Neptune means we're trying to find out things from the past. We've got some confusion. We've got some questioning. In some aspects, there can be something very spiritual to this. But I feel like more people are going to be just kind of trying to determine things from the past. What have we missed? You haven't talked to somebody in 2 years. What have you missed? Catch me up. In other ways, we're trying to figure out what worked and what didn't. Now, after the moon's opposition to Neptune, we're still on the 12th. We start to get in the afternoon. And between 2 and 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go through a trine to Pluto. Again, we don't know what we don't know. Moon opposite Neptune. That was in the earlier parts of the day. And then by the time we get to the afternoon, we're starting to investigate. We're starting to get underneath the surface. We're starting to look at the prior things that the bosses did. The old boss, whoever had your position before, what they did, what their responsibilities were. This position worked with other people. Talk to those people. Talk to those vendors. Talk to those clients. Talk to your coworkers. Especially if you're going into a new position. For some people, we're trying to get to the bottom of something because we felt like earlier in the day we got lied to. That's not a good thing. We were super excited at the beginning of the day, and then all of a sudden we kind of felt like somebody tried to pull the wool over our eyes, and the moon's trying to Pluto is figuring that out. But we're not struggling with whatever it is now because Pluto is now direct. We have absolutely no problem with saying where an issue is or isn't. Mars is going to be at 0 degrees all day, and throughout the 12th and the 13th, Mars is entering a trine with Saturn. Mars is in his house for the first time. I've already said this. But Mars is trying to take stock of what everyone else has done. There have been 3 eclipse seasons in his house. There have been other transits that have occurred in Scorpio. He's trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. What's good and what isn't. How can we progress from here? There's a disruption in our motivations, and this disruption comes with a responsibility of change. It's an understanding that power dynamics have changed. Things with our elders are changing. We're understanding of it. Mars is in a trine to Saturn. There's an understanding. There can still be disruption. There can still be frustrations, especially if you felt like somebody just lied to you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's horrible. Sometimes you got to just ask somebody, what the hell's wrong with you today? I don't know. Well, you're acting like a shitty person. Knock it off. Mars trine to Saturn. Well, the moon is in the trine to Pluto. What's wrong with you? I don't know. Let's talk about it. For some people, there's been an effect. And again, we need to talk about it. You don't tell me what's wrong, we can't fix it. Fine. We can't fix it if we can't do certain things, you know. Now, Mars is trine to Saturn. It builds all day. It actually doesn't go exact until Friday. I have something very interesting to tell everybody about Friday, and that is, it's not a heavy transit day. It's really not. At 7:23 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon will go from Virgo to Libra. Whatever occurred whenever the moon was in that trine to Pluto, and again, that was the most exact between 2 and 4:30 p.m., kind of set the mood for the rest of the day. Again, we're either trying to figure somebody out, we're trying to figure out where we get started, we're trying to figure out our first steps, we're trying to figure out the right actions to take. And by the time we get to the evening, we've got a better idea of what actions need to happen. Now, some actions will be occurring on Friday, but not many. A lot of people, the action is going to happen after the weekend. We're still trying to get our bearings about us. We're going to have 2 things happen on Friday. One, the moon will go through an antitia with Neptune. We're going to be aware of an effect. We're going to be aware of a lie. We're aware of a dream. We're having a dream. Some of us are struggling to sleep, or we were asleep and we wake up like feeling a struggle now. Some of us are going to be waking up feeling inspired. A motivation can come through. And by the earlier parts in the morning, the only other thing that's going to happen Friday, transit-wise, is Mars and it's trine to Saturn. Now, this goes the most exact between 7:10 a.m. and 7:35, so I've got this at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on October 13th. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody! Mars is trine to Saturn. We're accepting responsibility. We're accepting the change. We're accepting the turnaround. For some of us, the offer, the opportunity came through during the Mars-Pluto square, but we didn't immediately jump at the idea of the offer. Might have taken a few days. This can be where the announcement starts to get made. We're about to start something new. We're about to make some changes. We got an adjustment. There's something new that's meant to start this week. For some people, it's going to be very bittersweet. I'll put more emphasis on that at the end. I'm in a download mode and I've got a lot of ranting I can feel coming through. So there's your warning. There'll be a lot of emotions, bittersweet emotions. As we try to work through some things, we're trying to understand what's gone on below the surface. We're trying to understand the things that we've missed. We're trying to understand things from the past. There is an understanding with Mars' trine to Saturn. An understanding of change, an understanding in direction, an understanding that something can be turned around. But it is an understanding. It can be a declaration, but it doesn't necessarily mean that change will be immediate. Why? Because Saturn is going to be at 0 degrees for like the next 5 to 6 weeks. Turns direct on November 4th. Since the 11th, Saturn has been at 0 degrees. That means we're still going to have the 0 degree marks after Saturn turns direct. We have to unlearn some bad habits. We have to work on the turnaround. The baby steps in the turnaround. The actions of Mars and Scorpio are the steps forward, the steps towards change, the steps in our new direction. We're in an energy of a blank slate. Many people are starting something new. They're starting over again. They're trying to reconnect. Reconnect with family, reconnect with lost relationships, reconnect with old friends, reconnect in some way. And for us to get those reconnections to happen and to turn around the situation, we have to deal with old emotions and healing. Mars is in Scorpio. Pluto is direct. It is time for healing. It is time for new beginnings. It is time for a trajectory change. It is time for a new cycle. This is one element that speaks to that. The other comes through on the 14th. Comes through on Saturday. Comes through on Saturday. So we're going to keep going. After the Mars-Saturn trine goes exact, like, there's nothing going on Friday. Not astrologically speaking. So Friday's not a heavy day. Friday can have a lot of activity. You can get a lot of things done. We can really work through some emotions. As we get to the 14th, in the overnight hours between 3 and 5 a.m. Central Standard Time, that's the most exact. So I've got this at 3:30. The moon is going to make a conjunction to Mercury. We can decide we're going to do something. We can decide we're going to tell somebody how we feel. We can decide to have some kind of conversation. We can come to terms with something. Venus and Mercury are in mutual reception. The moon has made conjunctions to both of them all since Tuesday. We're getting closer to doing something. We're getting closer to starting something. We're getting closer to our turnaround energy. The moon goes in conjunction to Mercury. At 12:55 in the afternoon, so 12:55 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit our eclipse point. So I've got this at 1:30. The moon has just surpassed the sun. If you live in Texas, you have the ability to see this eclipse really, really well. Oklahoma, the further north, it's going to be harder to see. The closer to south, so like Durant and Ardmore, the Lake Texoma area, you will be able to see a good portion of the eclipse. Louisiana, you're going to be able to see parts of it. Lower Arkansas will be able to see parts of it. New Mexico will be able to see parts of it. That is the focused area that's going to have the most line of sight towards the eclipse. So Just so everybody's aware. Now, I'm not going to put a whole lot of emphasis on the new moon eclipse in this episode. It's going to get its own episode, pending nothing goes wrong with Mom. I don't know how this Mars Pluto square is going to go for her, just to be clear. This is a new moon eclipse conjunct the South Node. There is a release, there is a relief, there is purging in this eclipse. Loss can be tied to this eclipse. Some of us, we don't even realize just what that loss can mean. We don't realize just how important that relief can be. There's a bittersweetness to this eclipse. And for the next lunar month following the new moon, we're in eclipse season. The way I do the eclipses, it's whatever the first cycle is, it's that one to the next one. So this is a new moon. Our first eclipse is a new moon. So it's going to be new moon to new moon. This eclipse is happening where Mars was at back during the Aries full moon 2 weeks ago. So at the end of September, when the Aries full moon happened, Mars was here. Mars, in the disruptive energy, created an activation point during that full moon. There can be elements of this new moon that ties directly back to the Aries full moon. There are elements of this new moon eclipse that also tie back to last fall. Why do I say that? Because after this new moon perfects, throughout the day, the moon is going to hit a conjunction to the South Node. And I'm telling you, there can be a lot of internal energy this day, a lot of emotions, a lot of purging. And as the moon hits the conjunction of the South Node, Mars is going to start to go over the one and only new moon eclipse that happened in Scorpio. And that happened on October 25th of 2022. There are things with this new moon, things with this eclipse, things in this energy that directly tie back to last fall. There will be things from last fall that we're revisiting. Themes, the people, the places, the events coming back around. Think of where you were at between October 22nd and October 25th. If we want to add some extra days for human effect, we can say October 20th to the 27th, but the two dates I'm most exact, October 22nd and October 25th of 2022. What was going on in that time frame? At that time frame, Mars was stationing to go retrograde. What was going on in your life during that first, it's not a first eclipse, but that one and only new moon eclipse that happened in Scorpio, because this is our first Scorpio eclipse point that starts to get activating immediately following the Libra new moon eclipse. There are activations beyond just this eclipse. We have been setting the stage for a new cycle for the last 2 years. The new cycle is beginning throughout the rest of this year. New things are coming. New motivations. For some people, the newness is a level up. There's a level up in parts of this energy. It can be very, very motivating. It can be very helpful and push some people forward. Push them into new momentum. But on the other side, there can be a bittersweet disruption. We were aware of something being very close to happening a year ago, and it didn't happen. Somebody didn't pull the trigger. Somebody couldn't decide of what they wanted to do or not. We're closer to decisions being made now. The moon's going to hit its conjunction to the South Node between 7:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can see that here. By the time the moon is done with its conjunction to the South Node, Mars is going over its eclipse point. And that's going to be part of the energy that we're dealing with over Saturday evening and Sunday morning. Internal activations. I'll cover a little bit more of that whenever we get to the end. Actually, no, I'll cover more of that in the new moon episode. there are activations. On the 15th, early morning, 6:05 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Scorpio. Something happened during the eclipse that's affecting our emotions. A disruption can be confirmed, and that confirmation is meant to happen as the moon goes through its trine to Saturn. That goes the most exact between 6:30 and 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Immediately after the moon goes through its trine with Saturn, the moon is going to make a conjunction to Mars. Now that goes the most exact between 9:30 and 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Something's happened over this last week. Something with the elders, something with authority figures, something with the way we see our boss. Our own levels of responsibility have changed. Our role as a responsible person in the party of however responsibility is being looked at is changing. Elders pass away. That means the next round of elders must ascend. They level up. They come to the next placement. There is disruption in the new moon. We will still be dealing with some of the emotional disruptions of that new moon as we get into Sunday. The moon's conjunction to Mars can be very disruptive, especially if we're in our feelings, but it can also be very confirming. We can meet up with somebody, start talking about this new beginning. We can show up to Mars's house and be like, wow, I thought you used to have furniture here. He's like, yeah, I know, I haven't been home in 2 years. Think military. I've been on a tour of duty. It's the first time I've been here in 2 years. I used to have shit. What happened? Venus sold it all. Venus is getting the blame for a while. Venus did what she wanted to do. There is a level up. There's new beginnings, but there's also dealing with the emotions, how we feel about something, how we feel about someone, how we have felt for a long time, and the responsibility tied to it. There's a lot of emotions. Now, in the later part of the day, this will be the last little transit of the afternoon, and this is not heavy. Venus, between 4:45 and 7 p.m., basically, will hit a sextile with the moon. So I actually have this right here at 5:30. Venus is 6 degrees, 8 minutes. Here's the moon at 5 degrees, 58 minutes. So it hasn't perfected yet. It'll perfect over the course of like the next hour. Yeah, by 6:30, it's past it. The exact is past it. There's a check-in. Hey, you doing okay? Hey, are you holding up okay? Hey, do you need anything? Hey, do you want to go to the movies? Hey, do you want to do something? It's a check-in. It's not heavy. It's an awareness that something has just occurred. A bittersweet energy has just taken place. An event has taken place in the last few days, and we got to check on somebody. Some people were just going, hey, how did it go last night? How did it go yesterday? How did it go throughout the week? I know we haven't talked. Some people you might get a response, other people you might not. Everybody's going to be in different places. But there's a bittersweet energy to this week. When Mars hits that square to Pluto, there can be a physical act or action that takes place, and what we have to deal with all week is a repercussion. It's the results, it's the consequences, especially if it was a physical activity. When I do my intros to people on their private readings, when I explain the differences between trines and sextiles and all that, when I always say squares, I'm like, squares, think back, we're going back to school, it's a 90-degree angle, but in layman's terms, it's square up, bitch. Some of us, last weekend, going into this week, had a square up bitch moment. We had a physical activity that put us in the crosshairs of someone else. Some of us, it was a Jerry Springer episode. We were sitting there watching something else unfold going, wow, I don't want to be a part of that at all. Think it's time to leave. There was something physical that happened. A physical act. Some of us that act, we didn't think about the repercussion. We didn't think about what would happen next. We didn't think that anything else was going to come of it. And then that changed everything, didn't it? For some people, going into this week, a physical act or activity occurred. For some people, it was a physical effect in the form of the body. Underneath the surface, Pluto is stationing direct at the first part of the week. Last week and going into the first part of this week. A physical thing underneath the surface can lead to a turnaround. It can lead to an awareness change. And all of those hits to Saturn can all be about talking to the doctor about our elder. What's wrong with Grandma? What's wrong with Grandpa? What's going on? There can be things that require us getting below the surface. We need the scans. We need the labs. We need the x-rays, the MRIs. We need all the stuff so we can see below the surface. And this week is a process of trying to understand what's going wrong underneath the surface. And again, that eclipse can be a bitter, sweet energy. For others, it was a change in our motivation. A challenge was accepted to turn something around. To turn something around in our own personal power, to no longer be abused, to no longer feel like we have to succumb to everyone and everything else. No. It was a regaining of strength, a regaining of motivation. But even to regain the strength, that means you have to leave behind the abuser. You have to leave something or someone behind. As much as there are new beginnings and new motivations and new ideas and newness, as much as we have new things, the other side of that is we have loss. This is a new moon conjunct the South Node. It is a body with no head. The ego is gone. We are dealing with everything here. This body was discarded, disgraced, outgrown, thrown to the wind, treated like it doesn't matter. Some of us are been treated like we don't matter for a long time. We're tired of it. And again, parts of this week are to regain our power. Find a new motivation. Find a new idea. Find a new way to move forward. And Mars going into Scorpio is going to be a blank slate in progressing forward. A long-term motivation that leads to a rebirth. That rebirth is going to happen in November. It's how we wrap up eclipse season. This is going to be a very bitter, sweet energy in the month following this week. Our motivation is meant to change. The people that we respect, the authority figures we do things with, that's going to change. Some of us, we're going to be stepping into that authority figure. Some of us, we are about to become that next level of who we are within our family. If you've been young for a long time and now all of a sudden you're everybody's auntie. I am the oldest of 16 kids, trust and believe me. I am everybody's auntie. And tribes, we don't care. The natives, we don't care. I have so many kids that call me auntie that are not mine. Whatever. They're mine. My Mars in Cancer. Come on, kids. Jupiter. I have Jupiter in my 4th house. Come on, kids. I'm everybody's auntie. Trust me. There's a shift in the motivation. There will be weight and emotions to this week. Some of those emotions are going to be, again, finding our strength, finding our hope again, finding our own determination. For some of us, it's going to be the loss, or it's going to be the first steps towards loss. For some people, it's going to be finding the right medicine, finding that part that can lead to the turnaround, and it's finding the treatments. And once we get the right treatment, we get the right medicine, we get the right routine. Venus in Virgo. the new routine that we start, Venus in Virgo while Mercury is in Libra, that will lead to a long-term change. We have the ability to start a huge transition. This transition will be the most hyper-focused over the course of the next month following the new moon. Be most hyper-focused over the next month and will solidify the new long-term area, the new long-term parts of life as we get to the later parts of this month. We got to start something new. To start those new things, something is going to get left behind. People will be left behind. Situations get left behind. Abusers get left behind. Many of us are going to finally make the choice to no longer live in insanity after this week. I hope that's true for everyone. Healing is necessary. There's a lot of healing in the energy on so many levels. I hope they find the right medicines. I hope you find the thing that will help heal your heart and heal your mind. Everyone's got a different way of thinking, a different way of healing, a different way of handling the process. But again, if you've been doing the exact same thing over and over again and still nothing has changed, then by God, stop living in insanity and accept some change. I love and appreciate every single one of you. My goal is to do a new moon video very, very quickly to make sure it's just ready for you guys. It's been a lot. If for any reason an episode does not come out, that means something has happened to my mom. I don't always put that on the Spiritually Bougie astrology page on Facebook. A lot of times if something like that is going to go on, I'll tweet about it and I'll put it on my actual Facebook page. So not everybody would know that. But if for some reason an episode doesn't come out, that's what you can just assume is something's probably happened with my mom. So I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.